Good evening, everyone. Those 30 seconds we were just warned about have elapsed, so it is now time to call the Westfield Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission meeting for October 7, 2024 to order. Staff could start it all off by confirming that we have a quorum.
Mr. Bunkofus?
Present.
Mr. Horke?
Here.
Mr. Kahn? Dr. Keene?
Here.
Ms. Carlson? Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Mooney?
Here.
Mr. Neal?
Present.
And Mr. Woodard. So it looks like we have 6 present. So we have a
We do
quorum.
have a quorum and an extra, but everybody please stay. We are going to dispense with all of the agenda items. However, for the assurance that somebody who may be here for the discussion, limited though it probably will be on the temporary greenhouse expansion ordinance, we're going to move that to the front end of public hearings, but we'll still do all the usual items. Well, I have this on, but that's usually where it sits, but apparently something got changed. So, now, on to approval of the minutes of our September 16th meeting. Is there a motion regarding these minutes?
Make a motion to approve September 16th minutes.
Second.
Motion by Billy Bunkofus and seconded by, is that you? Mike Neal. Everybody's voting on it as present, so we can do this by voice. Everybody in favor of approving these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed or abstaining? Minutes are approved. Staff could please review the rules of procedures for tonight's meeting, which includes a variety of fun topics to address. Please note now at 7:02 that Stephanie Carlson has joined our festivities.
Okay, we will move into the rules of procedure for this evening. So for tonight's meeting, we do have items of business and public hearing items. So for items that require a public hearing, tonight's meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition, then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will then open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. Those representing a group will be given 5 minutes to speak. Only one member of the group will be given 5 minutes to speak. For efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to commission members. The petitioner will then be given up to 10 minutes to respond to comments without interruption. The commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. This may include additional discussion with the petitioner. For items that do not require a public hearing, so that would be items of business this evening, the department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes to the Plan Commission. The commission will then act upon the petition. And just wanted to cover some general rules of conduct for this evening. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, then please line up along the west wall once the public hearing is opened. Please sign in the speaker sheet as you approach the podium to speak. For efficiency purposes, we ask that those representing a group speak first. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record. We ask that you do not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed and you will be advised when there are approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person, comments regarding a petition, they should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded to the Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Also, please mute your microphone when not speaking. If you come to the podium to speak, please ensure that the microphone is on as indicated by the green light at the microphone base. So with that, that concludes our rules of procedures for this evening, and we can proceed.
Thank you. We have a wonderful example of the benefits of a consent agenda tonight. There's 5 items bundled together all ready for our approval of a consent agenda. Is there such a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Victor McCarty, seconded by Dr. Keen. You snuck in unnoticed.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes.
Do we want to recall the roll, or do we just want to mark?
No, we'll just add it, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing, we have 2 items of business tonight, both Plan Commission orders, 2405 and 2406. First 105 is an amendment to the South Park EDA. 06 is an amendment to the East Side, also known as Aurora EDA. The explanation intros will be the same, but to move those along, we will need separate motions when we get there. So if we can have the staff intro, please.
Yeah, so similar to our last meeting, tonight we have a few Plan Commission orders to cover. So the first Plan Commission order is the South Park EDA. So the South Park EDA, this was creating a new EDA, and just for clarification, EDA stands for Economic Development Area. So for the South Park item, creating this new EDA with limits that match the ERA, which is Economic Redevelopment Area. That is the purpose of this before you tonight. It's just for those 2 Economic Development Area and Economic Redevelopment Area boundaries to match. This was confirmed by Council last month. The purpose of having an EDA and ERA with the same limits is to provide flexibility and incentive opportunities in this existing industrial area. So this EDA will ultimately provide opportunities to use TIF dollars to invest in public infrastructure improvements that benefit the area. The previously approved ERA provides an opportunity to offer abatements to attract future businesses to the area. At this time, no bonds are currently being proposed for this area. Improvements will be considered when economic development opportunities arise. So that is the first item that you see here. We're essentially making the economic development area boundary match the economic redevelopment area boundary. The second item is the Aurora, which if we go to that one, I'll go ahead and pull that up. This is up in the North Point Planned Unit Development District area that you see here. So this proposal is amending an existing EDA with limits to match the North Point and North Point 2 PUD limits and to add the community health hospital land. The purpose of expanding this EDA is to provide opportunities to use TIF dollars captured by the development to these parcels to invest in public infrastructure improvements in the area. Similar to the South Park EDA, no bonds are currently being proposed for this area. And let me see any other notes that I have here to cover. And then similar to the South Park, improvements will be considered as economic development opportunities as they present themselves. So with that, that briefly covers the South Park EDA and the Aurora EDA. Just updates of these maps for consistency purposes and just some general housekeeping items. The Plan Commission will have to have a motion and a vote for all these. This is just another step in the process that these 2 orders move through the procedural steps to become ultimately approved. So with that, if there's any questions, please feel free to let us know.
Okay,
And we can proceed.
Thank you.
And also, I just want to note too that all Plan Commission members will need to sign these, so don't run away after the meeting. So we'll figure out a way to make that efficiently flow. So just don't run away at the end of the meeting. We have a few things for you to sign.
We got that. Are there any questions? There was a prior email from Janelle Fairman who also elaborated on the intent and purpose of this and its benefits. So we have pretty comprehensive information on it, so I hope we're all okay, but if we're not, now is the time for a question. If there are no questions, then we're looking for first a motion for a recommendation to City Council on the South Park EDA Plan Commission Order 2405. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to approve Order 2405.
We have a motion from Dr. Keen, seconded by Mike Neal. A favorable recommendation, if staff could please call the roll.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Dr. Keen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Mooney,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Bungafuss,
Yes.
and Mr. Jorge.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, we need a motion for the East Side or Aurora EDA Plan Commission Order 2406. Similarly, for a recommendation to council. So we have an anxious Billy Bunkavis down there ready to make a
Jump the
motion.
gun. Please forgive me for my transgressions. Motion to approve Order 2406.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion from Billy Bunkavis, seconded by Mike Neal for a favorable recommendation. Staff, please call the roll.
Dr. Keen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Mooney,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Bungafuss,
Yes.
Mr. Jorge,
Yes.
and Mr. Khan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That completes our items of business for this evening. Moving us on to public hearing items, and as I indicated at the top of the meeting, we'll jump into the temporary greenhouse expansion ordinance initially. That is petition 2410-ZOA-04. And Lauren Gillingham is here to brief us on what this is and why it's in front of us.
Thank you. For the record, Lauren Gillingham Teague with Community Development. The item before you tonight is the public hearing for 2410 ZOA 04, a text amendment to the UDO pertaining to 6.18 temporary use and event standards, specifically the temporary greenhouse and holiday tree sales section. I feel like this is so simple, it can get a little bit confusing. So kind of to start off, I truly think this is kind of an omission that could have been fixed administratively, but it is up here for public hearing tonight to get your guys' blessing. So essentially, our UDO discusses holiday tree lots, temporary greenhouse sales, restricts them to 3,800 square feet. It then goes on to say that with the permission of the director, holiday tree lots may be increased to 5,000 square feet. Doesn't mention temporary greenhouse sales, and doesn't make any mention of why there's a difference. We had a local greenhouse vendor, L&M Gardens.
We think that's who it was, yes.
I can never remember what it is. So L&M Gardens approached us earlier this year discussing their yearly permit for their sales that start in the spring, and mentioned that they would like to make use of this if only it permitted temporary greenhouse sales. We did an internal review and couldn't come up with a good reason why that was omitted and why we couldn't just add it, make everything easier. So yeah, so this is before you tonight to add temporary greenhouse sales areas to the administrative expansion.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, with previous UDO patches, we have required a workshop meeting to discuss the items in further detail. I'm not for sure if the nature of this request warrants a workshop meeting, so if you would like to waive it, just make sure to do so before you consider any further action on the item.
Right, I was going to
Yeah,
move
you're-
on to that next, that we kind
Getting
of,
ahead of me, Wes. So
in
yeah,
talking this through, we kind of figured it was an error right from the get-go that just never had anybody astute or honest enough to point it out to us, and that it is something that if the commission is so agreeable, we can waive the requirement for a workshop and send a recommendation motion tonight. But did you have something else to say, Lauren?
I was just going to end with, I would like to request a recommendation for this item written here. Yeah, happy to answer any questions. I doubt that there will be many. Thank you.
Anybody? Do we have anything that we'd like to ask questions about?
We do technically need a public hearing, too.
Oh, that's true. It is in the public hearing section. I got so excited about all these other things that we were clarifying. There is a requirement for public hearing. It is now 7:15, and the public hearing is open. Is there anybody in the house tonight that is interested in speaking, whether it be the bride's side or the groom's side, which is much more heavily weighted one way than the other? It's been a while since I had to make this comment, but I will go ahead and mention that if there is anybody attending virtually and has an interest in making a comment on this, we'll hold the public hearing open briefly while we wait to see if there's an email sent to planners@westfield.in.gov, and be sure and put in it if there is a comment that is about to be emailed, that it's the greenhouse expansion ordinance. So we'll hold briefly just in case there is a virtual attendee. And then we'll close the public hearing and move on to a waiver, if we're so inclined, and a recommendation, if that's the case. Which one of you gentlemen might be monitoring the inbox?
I have been there, no comments.
All right. Kind of thinking there's little likelihood of that. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:17. If the commission is so inclined, we're looking for a waiver of the workshop meeting requirement.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we waive the workshop requirement on 2410 ZOA 04.
Second.
Motion from Mike Neal, seconded by Victor McCarty to waive the workshop. If staff could please call the roll.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Mooney?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Bunkerfist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
And Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Okay, the workshop requirement has been waived. Is there a motion for a recommendation to council regarding the temporary greenhouse expansion ordinance 2410 ZOA 04?
Motion to send a favorable recommendation for 2410-ZOA-04, temp greenhouse expansion ordinance.
Motion to send a favorable from Victor McCarty. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Omar Khan. If staff could please call the roll.
Mr. Mooney?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Bunkerfist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
And Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
And Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving on backwards, we'll go back to what originally was the top of the public hearing items, which would start us with petition 2409-PUD-22, the Woodwind East Planned Unit Development. Mr. Crabtree can give us an intro, and then we will hear from the petitioner.
Good evening, Planning Commission. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening for a public hearing is the proposed Woodwind East Planned Unit Development. The project, approximately 136 acres in size, would be located approximately between 166th and 161st Streets to the north and south, west of Ditch Road. The project is proposed to have a maximum of 186 lots across 3 districts with varying minimum lot sizes, and would also incorporate 3 golf holes. This item had a neighborhood meeting on September 26th and has been properly noticed and advertised. The department has received several public comments, which have been made a part of the public comment exhibit this evening. John Dabashewitz of Nelson Frankenberger is present this evening on behalf of Old Town Companies LLC, after which he will be available for questions. And Jeremy Lawler of Old Town's here too.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crabtree, and thank you all for the opportunity to present tonight. John's got a few other things coming up, so I thought I'd take this one off of his plate here. For the record, I'm Jeremy Lawler with Old Town Companies. Also, John and Jim from Nelson and Frankenberger are here with us tonight. The matter before you is the Woodwind East PUD. With the the proposal is to rezone the 138 acres that is currently zoned AGSF1. Mr. Crabtree did a nice job of describing the property and the bounds. I'll go into a little bit further depth of the project itself. From an access perspective, we'll have an entrance on Ditch Road. Thank you, sir. Again, an entrance off of Ditch Road, another entrance off of 166th, a third primary entrance off 161st Street, and then we also have a connection over here to the existing Woodwind North development. We'll have sidewalks and path connectivity throughout. As Mr. Crabtree stated, we are proposing to construct 3 new golf holes in partnership with the city. This is the conceptual layout of what those 3 holes are. We do have a golf course architect on board that is actively working to refine the design to ensure that the golf course is of highest quality per the request of the city and also in the best interest of the development. From a transitional perspective, we obviously have the open green space of the golf course. We have provided buffer yards and tree preservation areas adjacent to all the existing residential in the neighborhood. So as well as some ponds that will work as buffers, and then generally just the lot sizes being a bit larger in those areas work well as a buffer as well. If you notice up here in the corner, there's a 15-acre piece of this parent parcel that has been carved out. That has been carved out at the request of the property owner. They would like to utilize that in the future for potentially a church or some other nonprofit type activity, I would assume. So it is not included in the zoning petition. It's carved out in particular, and it will have to come back through for a new rezone at that time. The development is broken into 3 primary areas. Area A in yellow, Area B in orange, and Area C in pink. Area A is got an SF2 underlined zoning with 61 100-foot lots. Area B is SF4, 61 lots that are similar in size but a little bit larger than what exists on the golf course today. And then SF3 for the pink area, there are 64 lots there. As we go through the products that's being proposed, Area A is a single-family custom product. Here are some images of homes that we have built in the area. In Westfield and in Zionsville specifically, I think these all are in that area. Estimated sales price for these houses is $1.5 million and up. And you can find many more examples of this in Chatham Hills or in Holiday Farms in Zionsville. Area B is our single-family custom ranch product, so it's a bit more dense on the orange lots, smaller footprints, still really nice price point starting at $700,000 and up. I think they'll average in the neighborhood of $900,000 to $1 million. And then in Area C, single-family semi-custom by Fisher Homes. I believe it's the Masterpiece Collection that they are proposing to build here. Floor plans from 2,200 to 4,200 square feet on average. Sale price is $800,000 to $1 million a piece. Also, you can find these up in Chatham. So these pictures were specifically taken up there. And then from an amenity perspective, if you look in the on the north side of the development, there's a wooded area up there that we would like to preserve, not only as a buffer, but also as an amenity to the community. We plan to create some naturalized trails as a walkway through there so that the residents can engage with the existing natural element there. Also, a playground and a shelter, picnic shelter or a hangout shelter there. We also feel that the golf course is a pretty significant amenity to the community and will draw a lot of attention there. So in conclusion, we held a very well-attended neighborhood meeting on September 26th, as well as some individual meetings with property owners, adjacent property owners. And we've also received, as Mr. Crabtree had mentioned, a handful of public comments that we're taking into consideration. We look forward to hearing some more feedback tonight so that we can, from the public, but also from you all as commissioners, and then as we march toward being before you at the workshop at the next meeting. So with that, I will yield to you all and wait for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This item is here for a public hearing, which we'll move on to next, and I will open at 7:26 p.m. Do we have a list that's already established, or is there anybody here that would like to speak that can come forward, sign the list, and provide some comments? If you could line up along the west wall, so that's the one to our right, your left, so we're not crowding the speakers area.
And once you've signed in, you're free to step up and just
And as indicated in the
press the base.
meeting requirements, if there is anybody that was appointed by a group, that person or persons would come first. If not, we're all talking as individuals, and you're welcome to proceed.
All right, hi, good evening. My name's Karna Baker, and I live on 161st Street. So if you're looking at the map here, Murphy's the biggest part to the west where the green and the water is, and then to the north of us, I've got that chunk back there. So that's my property, the corner with the pond, the 5 houses adjacent to that on the tree line. And once upon a time, it was said that the master plan for Westfield was to prevent this type of density. It's been a failure. It has not been kept up. Pulte had a much better offer for us probably in 2016 and 17 with less density and more respect to us as neighbors. I, for the most part of this land here being approached, have not talked to anybody. Nobody's knocked on my door. Nobody's called. Flood zoning is a big issue out here. Through the county, the ditch that runs across from Ditch Road all the way down in the front cannot accommodate the water we have from any house that's to the north and to the east of us. I'm very concerned about the property to the north of me. There's not been one thing said about flood zoning. Every house, every driveway, every rain, this clay soil, it's a problem to my property. You can see as you look at that map where it's washed away what previously was drain swales and clay tiles, they don't exist anymore. So I'd like the respect of that. I also want to propose that if they're going to be doing the houses to the north of me, I don't want them to touch the trees that are on my property. That line's mine. They're deciduous trees. They're habitat for owls and brown bats, along with the fact that we've got deer and whatever else runs through there. If they're going to be excavating back through there, the drip line of the tree branches, they should not be able to cross that, so that protects the root system. I'd also like to have a buffer zone. I think a minimum of a 5 to 6 foot berm along the north side of all of us lined up here, and trees on top of that to prevent some of the water from every single driveway and every single road will protect us that have to have adjoining property with this. I hope there's some respect to us that have been out here for the last 40, 50 plus years. Again, I've not been approached. Nobody said anything to me, and I think there should be respect for landowners, which we haven't had yet. We're back to the same thing. Once upon a time, master plan was not so much density, and we're getting hammered with it. We don't have the road structure. We don't have the schools. We've got problems. I hope you guys can help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joy Fisher, and I reside at 1740 West 161st Street. So I'm the lot just immediately to the east of her. Our property is adjacent to the proposed new development. We are one of the few remaining small farms in Westfield. What once was a largely rural area founded by Quakers is now the 6th fastest growing city in America. We understand development is inevitable, but we are asking our elected leaders to do so in a responsible manner. We ask your consideration of the following. 1, we need a much larger buffer. 30 feet is simply unacceptable as a buffer between two drastically different land uses. I believe the proposed development itself has buffers larger than 30 feet between the different housing types. 2, we are an active livestock farm with goats, sheep, cows, chickens, and barn cats. I believe we are one of the only properties adjacent to the development with livestock. Imagine one of the large bulls we are breeding with our cattle only being separated by 30 feet from a housing development. That is a huge liability for the city and for us. 3, we ask that any buffer be part of the HOA common ground and not part of an individual's property. That way, the HOA is responsible for maintaining the buffer and will hopefully deter the residents from entering our private property. 4, we ask that the buffer include a densely populated berm. The screen needs to be evergreen spruce trees maintained by the HOA. 5, we ask for fencing to be built and maintained by the developer. The fencing needs to be constructed on the back of the lots before the buffer area to create a definitive division between the HOA buffer and their yards. I believe this is actually being considered on another property adjacent to the development. We have baby animals on our property, and once again, it is a liability to have residents approach these animals. 6, we ask that you consider more custom homes with larger lot sizes. We believe this will make the proposed development unique among the other densely populated developments currently under construction in Westfield. We operate our farm using sustainable environmental practices. We fertilize our organic garden with the manure from our animals, and we are pesticide-free. Our chickens are free-range. It is a lifestyle I chose since being diagnosed with cancer. A 30-foot buffer will do nothing to prevent runoff from pesticides sprayed on grass, etc., in the housing development. Maintaining and planting windbreaks are some essential steps the city must take to ensure our crops continue to be organically grown. Finally, while our city may argue there is an incentive to the continued development, there's also a value in preserving our agricultural land and the beauty it brings. We are and continue to be good stewards of our land. We ask that you do the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
A lot of new faces. My name's Susie Dubois. I live at 1719 West 161st Street. I'm actually across the street from some of the people with the larger lots. I also have a large facility myself. We've been asking for better options presented on this property, and thank you to the Old Town team for coming forward with a lot better option than we've been presented in the past. However, there is still a lot of opportunity to do better. I also understand we're updating our comprehensive plan, but at this point, this is what is in place. And our comprehensive plan states that there is a desire to offer a diverse rather than homogeneous community, providing a range of housing, recreational, and economic opportunities for its residents. Many of the citizens in this area, including myself, have sought out larger acreage sites to pursue a more rural lifestyle, which was historically supported in this region. As development was expected, the plan requires appropriate transitions and buffers. There's really not much transitioning going on here between these differing character and density areas. At interfaces between large lot residential property and new suburban development, buffering requirements were said they were supposed to be used to preserve the rural environment of those larger parcels. The key for the area was that the land use transitions and buffers would accommodate suburban development in such a way that negative land use impacts on existing and stable rural uses would be mitigated so as not to negatively affect the quality of life of the long-term rural residents. There have been some concessions made in several areas that are more in line with appropriate buffering, but there is significant work to be done next to the Fishers, Kemmer, and Baker properties. Two of those have livestock, and there is a potential attractive nuisance with their animals, creating an undue liability for them. Speaking from direct experience, as I border the Serenade subdivision, there are many learned opportunities that should not be repeated in order to support the vision for the area and to respect the different lifestyle choices. The Serenade subdivision is developed in such a way that the 45-foot reforestation buffer adjoining my eastern boundary, which is not enough, is platted as part of the residential lots. The homeowners own the buffer. They are responsible for maintaining the buffer, but are extremely limited in what they can do within the buffer space. This is difficult for people to comprehend and has thus led to me having to play a policing role that no one wants to enforce in this area. It's a difficult position to put your existing residents in and completely unnecessary if the buffers are independent of the lots. By the way, for the developer, I have received a lot of feedback that people pay extra to live by me, so you can actually get more for these lots and make that buffer a little bigger. In closing, another thing that's really critical that we've learned in this area is that everything needs to be detailed out in writing as committed. There are numerous incidents in this area to include Viking Meadows subdivision and the golf course sale debacle that missed the mark with the language within the PUDs. So let's make sure that we get this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, as the next speaker is coming up, if there is anybody attending virtually, we'll check the inbox at the end of the in-person public comments. So if you care to send something and are not here in the building, write to planners@westfield.in.gov. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, my name is Kristen Berkman, 1924 West 161st Street. I am the house that has the two ponds on the left and right. Thank you, Dane. I would first like to talk about our buffer, please, which we are grateful for some space around us since we are the most impacted home in this plan. However, in the PUD, these particular areas are not defined, and we would like to ask to have further documentation on that. We would also appreciate if the petitioner would consider putting a fence around our property. You can see from this plan that we have two pedestrian paths that dead end and would go through our front yard. And there's also plans for a golf cart path that goes around 50% of our property. So for that reason, we would appreciate a fence for our security and safety. We are also requesting a 6 to 8 foot mound in the areas that are showing a buffer with trees and shrubs, again, to help protect our security and safety in our property. We would also like to ask that the entrance stay where it is or have a minimum amount of feet away from our property. Now, I'd like to go back in time a little bit for those that may not know. This has been ongoing in our neighborhood for 10 years. 10 years ago, my neighbors and I started a petition to save Westfield's only public golf course. This was done because Woodwind Golf Course was flirting with extinction due to a proposal to build 300 homes on it. We quickly collected over 1,000 names and contacts. It grew from there. The City Hall building shut the phones off because so many people called in, absolutely horrified that Westfield would get rid of their only public golf course. But this neighborhood on the west side, southwest side, understood this was a recreational asset to this community. So I want to publicly thank Mayor Willis and the City Council for purchasing the golf course. Now the city has a one-time opportunity to do this right. There appears to be a vision for the future of the course that's tied to this plan. However, an ordinance is not a vision. An ordinance is the reality. And what is imagined and the reality are only bridged by a well-documented PUD. This PUD does not document the vision that has been stated, and those areas needing attention are in my written comments that I submitted this afternoon that I would appreciate if everyone has time, and if you have questions on those, please reach out to Dane, and I'm happy to clarify. The details are critically important because the PUD stands alone and is not connected to a developer. While we may be thrilled to have Old Town involved in this project, there's no guarantee that Old Town will be the developer for this particular project or building these homes. It all lies within the PUD.
Time.
Oh, did I get a 30-second warning?
It's 5 minutes for a group.
Oh, okay. All right, well, thank you for your time. I think this group needs to have inclusion. I'm sorry, Dane, I didn't hear my 30-second warning.
Sorry,
but-
I didn't give you one.
Okay, so may I have a 30 seconds, since I didn't have a 30 seconds warning? This project lacks the inclusion of those who live here. The voices of the land speculators have been heard. The buffers are not well documented for those of us that live here. I just want to close with this. There's only one chance to be respectful to those most impacted by 5 years of construction, and only one chance to make this golf course facility the outstanding asset, because that's what it is, that this community deserves. This is the last parcel out there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Patty Kimmer, and I live at 1708 West 161st Street. I have the horse farm, and I have the arena that backs right up to their wall. And so therefore, I keep everything very clean and nice, but the back of my barn has all my farm equipments. It has tractors and horse trailers and gators and everything you can imagine. But also, I have my manure pile that goes right along that wall because I don't want to smell it and I don't want to see it, and I don't. All my property is beautiful right in front of me, but they will. That's what I can't understand is why, and I told him, I said, my God, those people are going to be so mad with that much money paying for those houses and looking at all my crap that's in the backyard. I mean, I'm right there, and here's their property right there. So all of those people all along that whole line, my property, will be looking at those implements and smelling all my horse poop. Now, I want the buffers. I want it to be 50 feet at least. I want the trees, big trees, and I want the HO whatever to be the owner of it. But the thing about it is this, when I moved there 40 years ago, I asked them, what is this parcel going to look like in, let's say, 50 years? Oh, they said, don't worry, that's going to be the old Westfield. That's going to be, show people that's what the country looked like years ago with the horse farms and the cattle and everything. You'll be fine. I said, be truthful with me, because if it's not going to be that way, I'll surely move. I mean, I can find other property. Nope, it's going to be like that. So in your conscience of conscience, can you not find that these 3,000 homes that they're putting back there that are around all of us all over the place, could you not just give us our property? Could you not at least give us some space for our animals and not have to worry about all of those? Does it have to be that dense? I mean, regardless of all that, our roads can't take it. My road's a mess. People fall off it all the time. They don't do nothing about it. I got a big ditch, I don't understand. And the water comes out of there so fast from that new apartment, from the new homes right across the street from me. It washed out my whole fence line. My fence line shows this high above now because of the water. And they were supposed to fix that, but the guy says, wait till they're all done. I said, okay, I waited till they're all done. They said, no, they're not going to do nothing. That's how it's been with Westfield. And it's not fair. They promised us that we would have our property. They promised us that we would be the old Westfield instead of this. So if you have a heart, open it up wide, look into it and say, if you lived there and you lived there 40 years, how would you feel? They're going to put houses right in your backyard that are $1 million and smelling my horse poop. So thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you.
Luck. Smile. Oh, you're not going to smile? Okay.
Next speaker.
Yes, I'm Bob Weller, and I live on Woodwind South. And you're saying, well, why are you concerned? Well, we lose 3 holes on the golf course. I bought, in good faith, my house on the hole 15, and I bought it intentionally. I waited 40 years to have a house on a golf course. And we have guarantees from the mayor that, no, we're not going to reroute it. But yet the plan does not have any how the course is going to be rerouted. And to me, as a homeowner, it's really unclear that I'm going to have any say at all in this because the city owns it. I have to trust the mayor. I know it's a separate deal, and I don't know how all this works, but it's kind of bad that we don't have any known mechanism to have a little bit of input into that. We have to trust everybody. That's item number 1. Item number 2, the mayor said he wanted to make the course a much better course by doing that, but then you turn around here, when we may be able to build on the 3 holes that go away, more houses on the course. It's really tight. If any of you golf, you know it's a really tight golf course. Putting more houses on the golf course on the holes you take away, from a golfer's perspective, which I'm a very avid golfer, I golf there a lot, doesn't make a lot of sense. So if the goal is to truly make it a really good course, you don't want to take those 3 holes that go away and put more houses on them, or limit it quite a bit. But my other comment that isn't addressed here, I don't think, if you have 3 holes north of, in addition to the other 2 north, you're going, depending on how you reroute it, you're going to have golf carts going back and forth over 161st. You need to be aware that road's pretty busy, and if you try to route them all back to the only one way you can go across, that's going to be a mess. You almost need to consider building some kind of tunnel or something under 161st. Those are accidents waiting to happen, especially with all this rerouting. If you're going back and forth, depending on how they reroute it, it could be a dangerous situation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Brandon Fisher. I'm at 1740 West 161st Street between the Bakers and the Kemmers. We're the narrow 8-acre piece of land. I'm a local business owner. I've lived in this area for over 40 years now. Just here to express some concerns about this development. My family and I, we run a working farm with cows, goats, sheep, chickens, barn cats, dogs. We're just beginning to breed some of our livestock as part of a growing business. Our farm is one of at least 4 agriculture properties that border this development. To my knowledge, none of us have been approached about this development. We learned about it through a letter in the mail. Maybe I'm just naive, but I would have hoped that there'd be some level of cooperation or collaboration between city developers and farmers like us who are directly impacted by these changes. We should be part of that conversation. To be clear, we're not against development. In fact, glad that Old Town's part of this. We like Old Town. But we welcome responsible development of the land around us. However, the way this development is currently planned, at least what's bordering my neighbors and I, 30 feet of buffer just is not enough between suburban homes and the farm. Raises some serious concerns. The safety of the future residents is a major concern for us, right? With animals, our animals may look friendly, but the fact is they're large livestock. Their behavior can be unpredictable. So if children or other pets from new homes wander too close, an innocent interaction could turn into a dangerous situation. Beyond safety, farm life comes with realities that could lead to complaints from new residents. Livestock smells, right? Unsightly farm equipment, like my neighbor spoke to. We certainly have no shortage of that. Early morning activities, these are just part of running a farm. We've seen how issues can lead to conflicts elsewhere, like Susie mentioned earlier, right? I'm concerned the same will happen here unless a more significant buffer is put in place. I'd like to see developers come up with a more responsible plan that ensures the safety and comfort of future residents while allowing us to continue farming without fear of complaints or liability. Finally, I'd like to point out there are fewer and fewer farms like ours remaining in Westfield. Our farm reflects the history of this town, represents what life used to be like here. We're working hard to preserve that legacy and to contribute to the future growth and success of the area. With the right planning, I believe we can strike a balance between preserving our agricultural heritage and allowing for responsible development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Scott Fry. I live at 2045 166th Street. My property backs up on the south side to this subdivision, and I would like to say that, again, as many others have mentioned, we've battled this for years. We know that eventually something's going to go there. I do believe that if in fact it is Old Town that ends up building here, I think that's probably the best that we've seen so far. I would like to implore you to understand that you've got an obligation to your taxpayers. You've got your obligation to people that live here now, today, that have been paying taxes, that moved out here, that spent their hard-earned money to move out to this property to enjoy this type of lifestyle. What I would tell you is, on my property, I back up to the proposed 5 homes that would be about this far apart. So from my backyard to where you, from the end of my property line to where you sit right now, I would have 5 properties, 5 homes backed up to my yard. There's nothing about that that's okay, folks. And I don't have, I've got dogs. That's all I've got and a bunch of kids. That might be worse than farm animals. I don't know. But that's not okay, okay? We talk a little bit about diversity. We talk a little bit about diversity of housing. Let me ask you, once we plop homes on every square inch of green land that we have available right now, where can someone go in Westfield if their vision of diversity is, or what they want, is to go somewhere where they can live a somewhat rural lifestyle? Now, we accept the fact that we know it's not going to be a cornfield forever, but where do you go? Where do you go in Westfield if you want a multi-acre lot and you want fewer neighbors? I mean, we should be allowed to have that, right? I think that's a reasonable request. When we do this, and you understand that right here, again, I've got this person's, place set, this person's place set, 5 people across the back of my lot, this distance. Now, we can talk about safety, we can talk about farm animals, we can talk about dogs, we can talk about all those different things. Let's throw all those out the window. What if I simply don't want to look at the back of somebody's house times 5, that far away? Where do I go? Is there a place in Westfield that I can do that? I can tell you, I moved here thinking that was the case. I moved here with the understanding that we're going to have multi-acre lots. I moved here with the understanding that when things do grow out there, they're going to be large lots, similar, maybe not exactly the size of mine, but similar to mine. What do? Do we just say, sorry, take it in the shorts, move on, be happy? That's not okay, guys. You've got an opportunity to do the right thing. We know that growth is going to come, and frankly, when growth comes with a large lot, and I would love to see it be Old Town. I really would. They've got great product. This is not the answer. This is not the solution.
30 seconds.
That's all I got. Keep us in mind.
Thank you. Have we received any email from somebody that might be attending virtually tonight?
No email.
No. All right, there's been ample time, so I will close the public hearing at 7:54. Mr. Lawler, whatever it is that you've been fast and furiously scribbling as far as notes, if you're prepared to make some comments in response to them, now is your time.
Certainly. Hopefully I can read this when I get back to the office, because I was scribbling quite quickly, but just want to thank everybody. We heard very much the same thing at the neighborhood meeting. We've already begun looking at ways that we can try to accommodate some of the requests, and I would offer any opportunity to hear your opinions at this point, and otherwise we'll yield the rest of our time, and we'll be back in a month or so to see you again.
All right. Fellow commissioners, questions or comments for the petitioner's team or staff?
Which way you want to go down the line?
No. You ready to?
Yeah, I have a question about the size of the lots along the northern area along those properties.
The custom lots through Section A, Area A?
Yeah, how large are those?
They are 100-foot minimum width, so they're about a third of an acre, just a little bit under a third of an acre, but 100-foot widths.
Okay, so they're still jam-packed lots. So what if you made those like more like an acre to 2 acre lots? Because these guys are paying a lot of money to be there. Maybe some of these people that are building these $1 million homes want some more land, which would appease some of these people that are backed up to, because you just have fewer homes along that northern border. And if they have the money for $1 million home, they surely wouldn't mind probably having a couple extra acres, which would probably give them more green space that they're looking at. And I agree on a much larger buffer. Thank you for that visual. But yeah, I think the buffer has to be pretty dang good sized.
Thank you, appreciate your comments.
The public hearing is, no, this is not a dialogue. The public hearing is closed. They're open to continued correspondence through staff that we will definitely get. We will, subsequent to this meeting, the developers team will go back and work on whatever it is they feel they can address from all the comments from the public tonight, those that were written, things that we might yet say. The third Monday of November, we will have a workshop meeting where we will have more of a dialogue. Public is welcome to come, but there is no more public hearing. That would be a listening activity. That meeting is at City Services. Like meetings here, they are live streamed. You would be able to sit at home and watch it on YouTube, which you may find more accommodating because it's a small room where we meet, but it fosters the kind of dialogue that the workshop meeting is intended for. But that is a petitioner and plan commission meeting, not another public hearing meeting. But we'll welcome whatever comments at whatever time you would like to communicate them through staff. Staff shares them with the entirety of the plan commission and the developer. So, any other questions, Stephanie, or comments?
I was kind of curious about the pond down at the bottom next to the young lady that's surrounded by everything. Is that water feature necessary? Can you just leave that like as raw land to give her a little buffer? I'm a golfer too, so I understand golf course layouts, but that seems like a random pond to me.
Having met with Ms. Berkman a couple times, I think she would prefer to have that pond there. To answer your question, is it functional? Yes, it is. That's a part of the drainage detention system, and it outlets from that pond.
Thank you.
Mr. Bunkfist, anything?
Echoing some of the comments tonight, excited at the potential of the Old Town product here. I think to the point, being able to save a public golf course, but then have private golf course style homes around that is a great addition to this community. I do echo the sentiment of we're not going to fix all the problems tonight, but excited to see the additional buffering information, maybe additional mounding information to give some cover, and we'll go from there. But thank you for this, and thank you for the public comment.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Riccardi.
Yeah, try to formulate my thoughts. It was interesting being at the neighborhood meeting a couple weeks ago. Like Jeremy said, very well attended. Appreciate all the dialogue that was there with addressing some of the comments that were made tonight regarding, I believe it's Area A that backs up to the homes off of 161st. Yeah, 50 feet would definitely be a minimum for me. I put that, of course, just like in the Kimberlick discussion, in terms of, in football terms, it's about 17 yards. So it's still not very much. So anything over the 50 foot is always appreciated as well. In terms of the lot size, it's all about perspective. I know individually I will never even be able to own the 1.5 million lots there. So having a 100-foot wide lot, that's about just over 30 yards. Again, that's very large for someone who grew up in a trailer park and so forth. So I understand what everyone's saying, though, that of course you would love to have it as minimal impact to your lifestyle as possible. I appreciate Mr. Fry being somewhat of a representative from the northern lots. Spoke with some neighbor homeowners to him at the neighborhood meeting. I think something that would also be appreciated up there, again, any further buffering, whether it's 50 plus feet or in particular in the Fisher Homes area there by the cul-de-sac. Three options I see for the 1, 2, 3 homes there at the end of the cul-de-sac, starting with the long lot, would be either increasing the buffer yard or the buffer setback to 50+ feet, adding a berm of trees, similar to behind Mr. Fry's property as well, or just outright eliminating 1, 2, or 3 of the lots. Just because, again, with any project, I want to make sure that we're being the best possible neighbors to anyone who currently lives there. Something that was mentioned, regarding buffering in general, I know this was noted in the staff report. It's already been requested to, instead of having the buffer yard being included within the lots of the to-be homeowners, to be excluded, and it be just in the HOA. I think that's also a necessary requirement as well. So that way, again, that's furthermore addition to. And then I appreciate the preservation of the trees, the amenity space. Any way we can, preserve trees is always a great deal, and then adding further amenities as well. In terms of addressing just any future concerns, it's difficult because we have to act accordingly based with what's in front of us. We don't know what's to come down the line. Again, at the meeting, the mayor did promise that anyone who currently has a golf course view, it would not be impacted in the future. I adhere to that as well. I don't, again, being a good neighbor, don't want to see anyone negatively impacted. I know I have a lot of thoughts. I'm sure it'll be said by some of my fellow commissioners. I won't continue to ramble on, but this will continue to be improved as we get through the workshop process. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I won't belabor. Victor actually said almost everything that I was thinking about, which I can appreciate. Yeah, trees and buffers are big for me in this, and preserving. Obviously, the farm instance too is very important, because if I'm in $1.5 million home, I don't think I'll be able to afford that either. If I woke up and suddenly smelled manure all day long, I think I'd be ticked about that. So definitely something that should be thought of. I think the one item, he mentioned it briefly, but I'll mention in more detail, is I am reading through this, through the amenities, that the golf course is certainly a robust amenity, and I agree. What I don't agree with is that other amenities then can be reduced, or we don't have to put as many in because there's a golf course there. I understand that the golf course life is something different. It's not something I completely understand. I'm terrible at mini golf as it is. Windmill shots are terrible, but at the end of the day, if I'm don't put that in the record. If I'm living here and I have a golf course, I still don't think that the cut down on amenities would be important, especially again if I'm living in $1 million homes. If I'm a golfer that also has a family and my kids may not be able to participate in said golf activities, at least at this robustness, I think that's important. And so I really asked you to take a greater look at amenity increasement. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Bunkfist, we'll work our way back. Or Mr. Khan, rather. Wrong. Yeah. Do you have some thoughts? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was actually going to
Like
echo the
tonight.
comments of Mr. Bunkovist. I think that, well, thank you, Old Town, for coming in and having this development here. There was a lot of people that petitioned to save the golf course, and to have, a development that would help do that, I think is important, financially speaking, to save the golf course. So all these things economically drive each other, and this is a big piece on figuring that out. That being said, there's some great comments tonight from the community, and I look forward to working with you guys to resolve those issues. And I'm not going to repeat everything that they have already said, but I look forward to resolving those in workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Mooney, anything? Dr. Key.
Yes. I have a couple of three things. And going last, or next to last, I'm going to still repeat a little bit. Jeremy, I said this on a different development. John heard this, but 30 feet is 10 yards. 10 yards is not enough. To me, 20 yards is a good starting point for for distance and for a lot of things out here. So I'm concerned about the buffer. I'm concerned about the amenities. I think there's a lack of amenities. We're going to lay this off on somebody else. But to me, the most important thing right now is we just now closed on the golf course. And there's going to be major revisions to the golf course because they really want to make that a community amenity and an economic development engine, not just a public golf course. And I'm having trouble deciding how I'd like to see this fit in with that master plan. So it's almost like this is too early in the game for me because I don't see the big picture at this point in time. Three new golf holes, what's happening to the other ones, what's going on all around there. So I don't know if staff has some insight into that, but to me, I have other concerns, but I worry about the size of lots and whatever. I'm really concerned about a timeline at this point in time. The only thing I'm going to make just a generalized comment because drainage was brought up. Drainage is always brought up when there's a new development. For the public, the Hamilton County will get involved in the drainage, and nothing that happens here can negatively impact your property. And in fact, there's a good probability that the drainage will be fixed and upgraded because of this development. So drainage is not a critical point here with concern with this development. But the other things I pointed out in my mind are major concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. I kind of echo some of what Dr. Keene has just indicated, and when we were vetting the agenda and the call that we have ahead of these, kind of raised that question is, how is all this going to work to figure out what will be built for new golf holes and how does that overall affect the existing course and the development of this neighborhood? And at the council meeting, which I watched, I was not in live attendance, but that was brought up that we need to be developing, if we're intent on the plan of 3 holes to further enhance the golf course's overall playability. And I'm, like many of us here, not a golfer, and I don't even get to the mini courses very often, and I agree, the windmills are tough. The comment was specifically made that we need to design the right golf holes and then see how the neighborhood works, as opposed to, we like this, we don't know if golfing can survive properly in what's left. That's the wrong order. We need to, so I don't know how we work out that. That really isn't our issue for tonight, but it's a concern that we all have, and I'm echoing that. The amenities, I'm kind of torn with, do we need more or not? Because at these price points, we're probably dealing with a level of homeowners, they'll just take care of themselves. And I'm not sure community-oriented facilities are all that important. I think the wooded area being retained, nobody's going to have that many trees on their own property. And if you want to be able to feel like you have an opportunity to go back to nature within a walking 10 minutes of your house, that's a great thing to have there with some other creature comforts that come along with it. So I do agree that those are important elements that shouldn't go away, but to whatever degree they can be, could be further enhanced. Anything else I might say would be repetitive, except for the northeast corner that's going to be carved off for the unknown future use. Would it be a correct assessment that that entrance coming off of Ditch at whatever that street is that goes into the corner development, is that actually straight as opposed to curving in, such that whatever happens there, you could come in and make a right turn to get into whatever that is? So that's actually a joint entrance for the north property as well as this property.
So yeah, I'll address that one first, and yes, you're exactly right. This is in the conceptual plan, which is what it is for this future development. This would be an entrance into it. It also would have a secondary entrance aligned with the Ackerson Farms development there.
Right.
So it would have 2 points of egress. So traffic wouldn't funnel through the neighborhood completely. Likely most of it would come through on 166. As far as the buffer and all your other comments, I hear you. Amenities, if you have suggestions, we are open to listen. And then as far as what happens in the future, I hope you all realize we're working hand in hand with the city on the design of the course, in the design of whatever happens. Part of the scope of the golf course architect is to look at the course holistically, figure out, they've got to take into account like yardage, so the full yardage of the course to make sure it's not becoming too short or anything like that. And ultimately, they will decide, the city and the golf course architect will decide what would be remnant and if residential could go there or something else. But the city's working hand in hand on that. We hold the contract with the architect just because we own the land and we're going to build the golf course, but the city's ultimately making those decisions.
And I was expecting that was probably the case. Don't need to labor over that any farther.
I actually have a further question. This is
Go
my
ahead.
first golf course. So happy to go on this journey with you. So you say that the golf course architect is employed by you, but but you said that the city chooses what happens here in terms of the 3 holes being added on your property. Is that what I heard correct?
The city's got the final say-so in the design of the course.
Okay. Okay.
And ultimately, we'll be the owner.
Right. And so the golf architect, when they created, because what I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, negating, if they're adding 3 holes, and I know there's discussion about other holes that may be removed or what have you, I guess I don't know. They were the architect would have been involved in the design of this neighborhood when all these holes were put in, right? So when you built this neighborhood plan, did they have input into what you were drawing right here?
They did. So our engineer put this together, but it went to them for, I guess we'll call it a smell test, prior to zoning being filed, yes.
Okay. And do you recall that any revisions were made based on their recommendations?
There haven't been yet. So we had another meeting with the city and the golf course architect coming up, I believe, it's either this week or next. They're bringing back their recommendations to that meeting on changes that they would suggest. The only thing they pointed out was the narrowness of some of the fairways. They would like to expand that a little bit. I think we can do that by reducing some pond size and doing some other shifting of things.
So there's a high probability we're going to see, because some of the golfers in the room had talked about the space. So chances are we're going to see some revision to that just based on that alone, not even counting the large amount of public interest we've had today. Okay, thank you.
And on that note, just recalling the neighborhood meeting, that was a hefty portion of the conversation of just the overall state of the current course. And pretty much this process is opening up holistically the entirety of the course and where improvements can be had and so forth. So as Jeremy alluded to, that'll just be an ongoing process of improvements.
The city's also looking at irrigation improvements, other plantings, other landscape improvements that'll all come out as a part of this process, and be fully aware that anything that would happen on the south side of 161st Street would have to come back in for a rezone in a future project, probably 27 after these holes are constructed and playable. But we and the city have all committed that the 18-hole golf course will stay open during construction. Nothing will change there until these 3 are playable.
And this is definitely a multi-year
evolution
for all of this from start to finish. So,
all right. Well, thank
any
you all very
other
much.
concerns from the commission?
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you at a future workshop meeting.
All right.
That completes that public hearing item. The final public hearing item is petition 2410-PUD-23, Trails to Planned Unit Development. And we'll wait for a moment while the room clears, and then we'll get an intro from Weston and comments from John. All right. Mr. Rogers.
Yep, so thank you, President, members of the commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the proposed Trails 2 Planned Unit Development District. This project is approximately 1 acre in size and is located at 807 East State Road 32. This is directly east of the existing crew car wash facility on State Road 32. The proposed PUD would allow for the expansion of the crew car wash on the neighboring property directly to the east of the existing crew car wash. This item is scheduled for a public hearing this evening. The petition was properly noticed and advertised, and staff has received no public comments to date. John Dabashewitz of Nelson and Frankenberger is present this evening on behalf of Crew Car Wash. John plans to provide a brief presentation on the matter. If there's any questions from any Plan Commission members, let John or myself know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dabashewitz, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good evening. Again, for the record, John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We're here tonight on behalf of Crew Car Wash. Catherine Rainier, Development Project Manager with Crew, is available with us, as well as the project engineer from Kimberly Horn. As staff indicated, there's a 1 acre parcel, and that sits between, if you're familiar with the space, there's Burger King on one side, Crew Car Wash on the other. There's an existing single-family home. A resident there was an avid attendee of past public meetings, both Plan Commission and Council in years past. And this would result in a few things across the frontage that are really unrelated to the development, but the path does not extend across the frontage. There's a sidewalk that's very close to State Road 32. With this development, that path, or sidewalk that's close to the street gets torn out, and the path gets extended further from the right-of-way and travel lanes of State Road 32, which is going to be a safety improvement. An additional item regarding the right-of-way is that the 2 driveway cuts that exist there in that U-shaped driveway that you can see on the aerial, those are removed as well. Access to this parcel would be exclusively through the parcel that Crew Car Wash occupies today to the west. So from a zoning standpoint, the Trails development is our site to the west over to Oak Ridge Road. There's another PUD that regulates the site with the multi-tenant building and the Burger King. What we're doing is taking this parcel and we're stepping into the same shoes as the Crew Car Wash sits in today. And from an architectural, site plan, here's our site plan. This building, you'll see it in a minute. I've got a photograph and an architectural illustration that shows it. State Road 32 here, the path I just talked about. Access goes in right here. Some of the existing vacuums in those stations are moved over to this location. The building's a long, narrow building. The queuing lane here, over to here, and you come in north and head south on a conveyor belt and out the side. You don't access this building unless you've already been to the first building. The interior clean isn't available without first going through the exterior wash. So all the transactional piece of this takes place if you've gone to Crew Car Wash before, in that first queuing segment before you go through the exterior wash. So there's not a situation where here you don't need a bypass lane and an escape lane to get around the queue, because that transactional piece takes place where there's already the escape lane, if you will, at the first location here, and you can come around if you're not engaged in the transaction. Photograph here of the existing store from State Road 32 looking south, and then elevations, or perspective drawing rather, same kind of tower element at the corner. This is the face that faces State Road 32. This is the side of the building that'll be most visible if you're traveling westbound on State Road 32. The eastbound side is similar to this, but not as many windows because you're faced back to back with the other Crew Car Wash building at its along its west perimeter. And back to our site plan. Due to the simplicity of the request, staff did not require us to have a neighborhood meeting. We didn't anticipate public comments. Haven't received any to date. If it's the will of the Plan Commission, we would respectfully request that the Commission consider forwarding a recommendation on this evening, unless there are items that you would like us to focus on in greater detail that would necessitate a committee workshop process that we'd be glad to go to. But this shaves, if it does, shaves 30 days off the approval process. And lessens the other caseload for matters that are perhaps more, need more detailed discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. This is here for a public hearing, so we'll do that next. I'll open the public hearing at 8:20. One last reminder, if there's anybody attending virtually that cares to comment, if you haven't already, please quickly write an email to planners@westfield.in.gov, and be sure Crew Car Wash is in the subject line. Is there anybody present in the room tonight that cares to make a comment? Seeing none, we will patiently wait for another 90 seconds or so, just in case there's somebody out there typing fast and furiously and wanting to share a comment.
At this time, we've received no emails.
We'll wait just a little bit longer for the next click of the minute to 8:22, and then we'll close it if there hasn't been a comment. All right, we're closing in on 8:22. If the inbox is still vacant, we'll close the public hearing at 8:22. Are there any questions or comments for staff or the petitioner's team?
No, if my wife would have been here, she would have publicly commented because she was an avid Crew Car Wash person until we moved here and didn't have an interior option. So you're making my wife very happy. Other than that, I would be supportive. I see no reason to hold this up workshop unless my fellow councilors would the same. That's my personal comment. But
And I'm fine with that as well. Is there anybody that has further questions or comments?
I will have a comment, having sat through a few of the presentations from the occupant of the single-family house, that this is a wonderful solution to the problem that exists. It was made by that person.
We kind of envision this could maybe come to pass whenever it is that this property was no longer her residence, because it didn't really have a higher and greater use that we could envision from somewhere else. So, yeah, I'm pleased that Crew is still interested. You have a question or further thought?
Question, it's going to have the same in and out options as all the other ones that are set up with that dual interior and exterior?
When you say,
Meaning, like, I can go to just an exterior wash and then I can leave,
Yeah.
or I can go to the interior?
correct.
Great. Mr. President, I've been watching this company since I was a kid, and it was Mike's Car Wash. And I go to that location over there. They do a great job. I mean, kudos to you guys and how well you run your business. It's a win for my car, and it's a win for Westfield's cars, and I would be happy to move this forward.
Just two quick questions for OCD's sake. Number one, the exterior signage, I assume it'll obviously be UDO and PUD compliant, but it'll mirror the Noblesville location-ish.
Is the Noblesville location on 32 open? Because I don't think the one on 146 has the dual area. So there's a location being constructed today at Hazeldale Parkway, State Road 32 in Noblesville, and that'll have the same form, the proposed format here of the two locations. Signage on this building would likely be a mimic to what's there today, rather than something. They're not going to change the whole signage format for the whole site.
And then you kind of have like matching towers on the facades. Will those be same height? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
I'm seeing yes.
I'll just say first, capitalism at work with what's across the street. Not to mention any names, but I think, like my fellow commissioners said, due to the prior history of this plot of land, that this is the perfect use for it. So thank you for continuing to invest in Westfield. And then also I'll just say, in terms of councilors being concerned, we had just mentioned, as Double Shay was mentioned earlier, the extension of the walking path along 32 to be consistent with what is to the west of Crew Car Wash currently, and then also in front of Burger King. So to correct that mistake that was caused by prior circumstances. So appreciate that being resolved. So thank you.
And it'll be fully across the entire frontage. What
Yes,
I'm saying is, if you see that sidewalk picks up here and goes all the way across, the existing frontage and the proposed, it's pulling across the entire frontage. That path will be constructed, so it's all going away.
Yep.
Not just across this one segment.
And the sidewalk that is there will be picked up.
It'll be removed and seeded and landscaped.
All right. Seems like there's a sentiment that we could waive the workshop meeting and make a recommendation. Am I correct in that?
Mr. President, I'd like to move to waive the workshop meeting for requirement for 2410-ZOA- oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the greenhouse because we're last, but it's not last. 2410-PUD-23.
Second.
I'll third, just so I can stop spending my monthly money elsewhere.
You'll third it and the
I'll
second?
third it, just so my membership works here. That'd be great.
Oh, I get the second? Oh,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion from Mike Neal, seconded by Omar Khan to
He was
waive the workshop meeting. Is staff, please call the roll.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Mooney?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Buckfist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
And Dr. Keen?
Yes.
The workshop is waived, so now we're ready for a recommendation regarding this proposal.
And I'll make a motion to send a favorable recommendation to council for 2410 PUD 23, the trails to PUD.
Second.
Motion from Victor McCarty for a favorable recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Billy Bunkovist. If staff could please call the roll.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Mooney?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Bunkefist?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
And Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
You are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes tonight's business. There are 3 items that are continued to a future meeting. One item that we worked long and hard on twice has been withdrawn a second time.
Mr. President, can I ask staff what was the reason given that Westfield Yard planned unit development was pulled? Anybody know?
The reason given was site issues.
Site issues. Very good. Thank you.
Moving us on then to reports and comments. Plan Commission members, anything for the rest of us from any of us? Why don't you go ahead and come forward?
Please, that'd be great.
I was wondering if you might care to
If
do
you
that.
wanna work overtime.
didn't seem
You
like
commented on the way out, and I thought,
Tell you what it wasn't. We felt we had a good dialogue with the planning commission, and there's a lot of additional items that were of concern to the planning commission and the council. It was exclusively site-related issues that led to the decision associated with elements that cross the site, as well as utilities, things like that. And so there wasn't any, we felt like we had a good position with regard to support from the city and staff and
We thought you did too.
Thank you.
All right. City Council liaison.
Yes, I'll try to be brief. So our last meeting was September 23rd. Under old business, we approved ordinance 2450, which was additional appropriation for Simon Moon Park Phase 1. And the funds were already budgeted in the Park Impact Fee Fund, but they just needed to be released. Ordinance 24-51, this was the additional appropriation for the special census, if I can speak. That was also approved. Under new business, we had resolution 24-147, which was the personal property tax abatement for Portal Diabetes. Awesome to have them in Westfield now, or to be soon, they're at least approved. Ordinance 2454, that was approving bonds to fund Simon Moon Park Phase 2, as well as improvements to Park Street. That will be back at council next week for consideration. Woodwind was introduced, And then, all right. And then crew car wash was introduced. The greenhouse was introduced, and town-run economic development bond. That was also introduced and debated. That will be back for approval at the next council meeting as well. That was all. Yes, please do. I'm just,
Great page.
I'm just using that as my recapper now, so.
Thank you. Unless I missed something about an agenda, we did not have a BZA meeting in between back then and now, so.
Well, and we do not have any filings for October, so there's no October BZA meeting.
I saw that that was also already canceled, so I was going to make the comment that we apparently have successfully largely put BZA out of business by making the change that we did to the pool ordinance. Being able to encroach without, yeah. Plat committee also did not meet. However, unlike BZA, there will be a meeting this coming Monday, a week from today, for somebody's plat. I don't know who's yet, but we'll find that out, I guess, on Thursday. Anything from Community Development Department? Any words of wisdom for us?
Yeah, just a few things. We are putting together schedules for next year, so for our meeting schedule and dates. So we're hoping to get that in front of everyone for approval at the first meeting in November. And as a reminder, that first meeting in November will not be on a Monday due to the election and the use of this building for election purposes. I believe this is a voting location here.
Early voting and
Early
day
voting
of.
and day of voting.
Yeah,
So
day of.
just make sure to remember that. We'll send out an email reminder as well. So schedules will be coming, and also don't leave. We have this whole stack of
Signatures.
EDAs here to
Yes.
sign. So we'll probably just start at one end
Take one down, pass them around.
and then just pass them on down, and we'll get that knocked out. So just don't go anywhere after the meeting.
Good news in terms of scheduling for next year, no elections, so can have regular dates.
Yeah, should be able to. Yeah.
BZA.
No BZA in October.
No filings.
That being the case, that we have now heard from Community Development, we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mike Neal and seconded by Victor McCarty. Everybody please in favor of adjourning, respond with aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed or abstaining from adjourning? We are adjourned at 8:33.